If you're obviously, you say you're a very spiritual person, and you said this was all part of the journey, and which led you to that moment. Well, meeting of the guy that in your life.
Yes, and one of my clients actually told me. She said, "I believe you were put on this planet to do this work because it was one of my biggest struggles in my life, and I know how these women feel, and I think that's where I come from, that perspective of not judgmental or just letting them know that
it's amazing because you did come in the corporate world, and this is something that was so far removed from your reality.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
when somebody first talked to you about hypnosis, how did you respond? Did you think it was something sort of a new agey, new realm kind of, out there kind of thing that you weren't even going to be involved in, that was so far from your reality?
No, actually, well, I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
I was like hypnosis. All I knew was the stage stuff, which is kind of wacky in the movies.
Yeah.
And when I read about it online, actually it was one of the top growing professions by the Wall Street Journal about 10 years ago. They predicted it would be a great new profession for people. And I really wanted to get out of the corporate world, and it was about the power of the mind, which I love, and I love personal growth, and really it was just, it fit in so nicely. And what I really think my job is to let people know that the truth of who they are, because when we're born, we're just these beautiful, perfect little beings, and we learn not to be that. And what I believe that hypnosis does is give you access to that innocence that we have, that pureness that we have, and that's where you attract that love. You don't attract with all the frivolities of life. You attract from the deep, essence of who you are.
Well, when you think of it, when you're born to this world, you're an innocent being, as a baby.
Yeah, and they're so lovable,
and
aren't
they're
they?
lovable, and yet, of course, life happens, right?
Yes.
And there's all kinds of influences. Parental influences, I'm sure, are a big part of this in terms, and the way people are judged, the way they judge themselves based on early childhood experiences, for the most part, I would guess, no?
Yes, and actually, the subconscious actually gets formed before we're 10, and then around 10, the seal forms between your conscious and your subconscious, and it filters out anything new. So after 10 years old, new ideas can't go into the subconscious. So it's almost like pottery, you mold the pottery.
Idea. Really, the new ideas won't be allowed to go into the subconscious? And
it takes longer time. It takes, for example, hypnosis actually opens up that seal, opens up that doorway to the subconscious, but it takes 1,000 affirmations to equal one suggestion in hypnosis. So repetition eventually will penetrate the subconscious. A traumatic event will do that, but typically we stay the same. And if you look at your relationships in life, they're the same relationships: work, family relationships, romantic. They're all the same. You say the same thing to yourself: I'm not good enough, or they're always criticizing me, but it really comes from inside. And so if you can change it.
Because I'm listening to you talking about family, your personal, your professional, yes, and you're right, it resonates all the way through. There are common threads in all of those in each person's life.
And when people do this work, even if for love, they find that they also attract more money in their life because it's really about worth. It's about knowing what you're worth. And, sadly, many children were taught and they weren't worth anything.
Right.
Or maybe they weren't taught that, but they believed it. I have had people who had great parenting, parents that really wanted them to be great, but they were never good enough. The parents always pushed them to excel and be perfect. And so that can have a detriment, too, not only just abuse.
Do you think that's a generational thing? Do you think it was part of the baby boomer generation, primarily about pushing their kids to a point where parents felt like they were never satisfied with where their children are at that point?
Well, yeah, and I think 50, even 30 years ago, what we know about parenting now is so different.
Yes.
But then also, I think kids need to be kids, and they need to be loved and accepted even when they make mistakes. And we were never, in general, we're never taught that in the business world, and even in life, we're always judged, everything's good or bad. And that's how we judge ourselves. And so my work is all about just loving every part of us. It's not about being perfect. It's about, I made a mistake, but I'm still, who I am is still that innocent, pure baby, and it's just, oops, it's an oops. And to be in a marriage and in a relationship where you're not afraid to make mistakes and you can be yourself. Can you imagine the communication and the
I'm curious, how many are, in terms of the people that you see, more men, more women? Is it about even?
When I was in Denver, I saw a lot more men because, I don't know if you know, the nickname for Denver is Manver.
Yes.
There's more men in Denver than single men than women. And in New York, it's the opposite. So now that I've been in New York for the past almost 2 years.
More women here.
More women.
Yes.
And what I find is my clients are typically over 35. They're highly educated, and they're extremely attractive. And they just underneath, all the things they tried to work on the surface never really penetrated down, and the deep wounds or the deep hurts they have deep inside haven't been addressed.
And in terms of success rates that you've seen, who gets it usually first? Men? Are they more open than women, or how do you find it?
Well,
I know everybody's different. It's based on individual situations, but overall, how do you see it?
Men are easier.
Men are easier than women.
Well, and plus because I'm a woman, and I think what I offer for the single men is that a lot of men I work with actually have been divorced. So they've been married for a long time, and then they're back out in the dating world. So they're older, they're in their 40s or 50s.
Scarier for them.
Yeah, and they just don't know what the rules are.
Right.
And to have me, to be kind of a sounding board. And a lot of them tell me that just speaking to me helps them learn how to speak to women. And they don't get into the stories as much as women do. Women like to get into the story and get lost in the explaining of why, and men are just result-oriented, so they're a little different in that way.
The men you see are mainly divorced men looking for a really lasting relationship the second time around.
Yes.
The women you see are those who
never
never married.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. And what about married couples? How often do married couples come to you for counseling, or at least to try to find a better balance in their marriage or more meaning? Well,
I don't do couple counseling, but I do work with women and men that are in marriages, and they'll come to me for other reasons like weight loss, or but mainly weight loss, especially with women. And what I find is that their relationship life is directly related to their weight. And if the man's picking at them to lose weight and don't eat that, the woman tends to eat more. And then when they resolve that in the marriage, and really, whether you're single or dating, it's all the same stuff. Your subconscious is, repeating those patterns, in whether you're in a relationship or not.
We've got some people writing in.
Okay.
This is from a viewer from Bryan, Texas, who's saying, "Hi, Uma. Ask Deborah this. I'm 43, male, a PhD candidate. Don't have anyone. What to do?" This is Hamilton.
Well, first, I would recommend that he list what he wants in a woman. What he really wants is ideal. And when I talk about that, I want to make sure that he includes not just the physical, but how he wants to feel in that relationship.
Is it really important to write all this down?
Yes.
It is.
80% of what you write down, your goals actually come true.
Really?
So just writing them down, it's like it's taking it out of your mind and putting it into the third-dimensional world. It's like, it's real. It makes it real and tangible. And I had 36 things on my list.
Wow.
And he was like 34 of them, my guy.
That's very, very
good.
Yeah,
he was pretty good. He didn't like
cool.
sports, and that was one of mine, because I'm a Giants fan and a Yankee fan. He doesn't like sports. And there was one other thing that he wasn't, which wasn't that important. But what I recommend to him is start visualizing every day exactly that feeling he wants to have, and imagine that she's there with him, and what that would feel like to be with someone who adores you, and because what happens is the subconscious will start to believe it's real, and see, the subconscious can't do anything, create anything that it doesn't know already, so it only can look in the past of what you created before. So what you're doing is you're opening up a new possibility by visualizing and almost creating a false memory, and so your subconscious, it's like another option, because it'll just repeat the patterns that are there. So and part of our memory is part fiction and part fantasy. So when we're visualizing and fantasizing, we're actually creating new memories in our subconscious mind. So
have there ever been any issues where people have tried this and it just doesn't click? There are some people who are just so closed or not open enough that no matter what you do to try to work with them, they may not be ready for this type of work?
Well, there are very, very few, and a lot of times people that have like personality disorders, that really need help. And then there's people that really are, I call it being addicted to being single. They are addicted to just, they keep finding that excuse of, or they have this idea, they get, in their 40s and they have this built up idea of who this great guy is, and then, they're still thinking in their mind they're 20, and the guys now that are their age are like balding or, not as, not 20-year-olds anymore, and they have these unrealistic ideas of who these people are. And it really is like, I have no control over them, so they have to make the choice, and many times they really don't want to meet that, but it's very, very rare, and I help them get over that.